Alright, what is up YouTube? So today I'm going to be showcasing my Adamancipator deck post-banlist. I know a lot of you guys that are a fan of Adamancipators are just looking for new ways to play this deck without LINKROSS, and I'm here to showcase you guys how to play this deck without LINKROSS. So everybody's like, oh my god, LINKROSS is gonna kill this deck. This deck is dead. Even more with Block Dragon being banned and stuff like that. I think that this deck is pretty much at the same it was at, maybe a little bit worse because LINKROSS did give you access to Herald before you kind of comboed off, and it baited out stuff like Nibiru and stuff like that. So you can kind of research her afterwards, combo off and stuff like that. But I feel like the deck is still in the same spot. It still loses to the same thing. It still loses to like Gamma Nibiru. It still loses to Forbidden Droplets, Dark World no more. But now that we have something like the Buster Lock, banned, we now have to deal with stuff like Super Poly, Evenly Match, more and more. And I feel like this deck is kind of weaker because of that, not because of Link Cross. But I'll be showcasing how you can kind of play around that, how you can recover from the LINKROSS ban, and then discussing more on the deck because I feel like this deck is still really good. It's still really powerful, good play through multiple hand traps with a very good hand like you see on this screen. But the deck is still gonna lose to stuff like, Forbidden Droplets, Evenly Match, all these going second cards. And before I do get into replay, I do want to say that I know it's gonna be weird that I'm saying this, but VFD being in the format actually helps his deck because a lot of these going second cards, like, Evenly Match, Dark Rule No More, Forbidden Droplets, is not going to be as good against something like Virtual World. So people are not going to side those cards in. They're probably going to side more cards for VFD, which makes your Adamancipator strategy better. So that is where you kind of have to analyze the format and try to like decipher what people are playing so you can kind of counter what they are playing or try to play around your combo based on what people are siding and May decking in their deck. So let's get on to the replays. I'll show like a few replays of me playing solo. I know I'm not playing against nobody, but I feel like the best way to kind of show Adamancipators is kind of in depth, kind of show you how you can play around different hand traps, and then kind of give you like a standard list you'd be looking at for post-banlist. So let's get on to the combos. It's pretty self-explanatory. You're going to be doing the same thing. You're just going to focus on putting up negates with Adamancipators. I know there's a lot of builds that are playing stuff like the Extravagance build to kind of focus more on the Adamancipator synchros, but I feel like Needle Fiber in this deck is just so good. You see with this good hand, I have Guardian. Starting off with Guardian is just very strong, being able to have that negate for something like Nibiru, for something like Gamma, for something like any monster negate. So it's very good, as well as, having this Doki is also really good because with these level 2 tuners you have, stuff like the Adamancipator Seeker, Researcher, and the Dino Wrestler that I'll showcase later on in the video, you can make Herald with these cards. I know that Herald was really good with LINKROSS, and that's why the combo was just very strong. But now you just kind of focus on trying to hard make Herald with stuff like Doki, Seeker, and trying to get out in the gate with something like Guardian to kind of secure your combo so you don't get, hit by Nibiru and just lose. I'm going to special summon the Supplier. Supplier is going to get Quackimero from my deck to my hand, and then I'm just going to go into Fibrax. Fibrax is going to supply me a tuner on the field so I can go into Raptite. Raptite is going to get me another negate on top of that, or just get a body on the field. So you're going to see that I mill the wall, and that is now 1, 2, 3 negates on the field. And now I have Monster Reborn to kind of extend because I don't have a wind type in the graveyard. So I'm going to just summon back a tuner, and then I'm going to go into a level 8 Synchro, which is the Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. And now I essentially have 4 negates plus the Krishan Hako Fibrax, which is going to give me disruption as well. So on your opponent's turn, you can use Formula as Synchro's effect on res or when they summon or after they summon, something like that, so it doesn't lose its effect. And then you could draw the card, as you see is going to be the Dino Wrestler. This could also be like Seeker if you stacked it with something like Signs. It could be any of the going second cards like, Talent, stuff like that. It could be Desires you top decked. So all of these cards are just really good to top deck. If they kind of break your board or you're just trying to go for a game next turn and you get rid of all your Quackies, your Heralds, and you don't have enough damage. But now that you have Formula Synchro on the field, you can fast synchro summon into your Satellite Warrior, which is going to pop multiple cards. It's going to pop 3 cards with the cards you have in the graveyard already, and then if you use the effect of Herald, you're going to have 4 pops on your opponent's turn. So not only having 4 negates, you have 4 pops potentially with the Satellite Warrior. And I feel like this is the most underrated card with Adamancipator. If you're not focusing on the Satellite Warrior, you're more focused on Appaloosa. I think that's really bad, although something like Appaloosa can be very good for playing around something like Nibiru. I feel like Satellite Warrior is just very good. And I feel like a lot of people are really focusing on putting as much as negation as possible. I don't really think that's really necessary. You should probably focus more on trying to get consistently, maybe 3 negates and like 2 pops with Satellite Warrior, because at the end of the day, you don't need that many negates to kind of defeat your opponent. Like, realistically, you negate like 2 cards and they're probably not going to be able to play. Maybe if they have a really insane hand, that is where you need like multiple negates. But for the most part, when you have like 3 negates plus a pop, like it doesn't really matter. Like your opponent's probably not going to be playing through that. So that is what I want to kind of get you to realize, is that putting out multiple negates is not really the focus. I know Adamancipator before was able to put an Appaloosa, Dweller, Savage, Herald, like all of these negates, but you kind of just have to focus on consistently getting out, maybe 3 negates, maybe 2 negates with like 2 pops or something like that. So that is the main focus you want to focus on when playing this deck. So let's get on to the next replay. I'm going to fast forward through it. You see that I use Doki, and now I can go into Hard Herald. I can now resolve the Seeker. Seeker is going to get a level 4 on the board. So now I can either make a Christian Halka Fibrax, or I can make a level 6 Synchro, which I am going to go for the Halka Fibrax, which I do have the Seeker in the graveyard. I could signs it back and then stack my deck, get to the Guitar. Guitar is going to put back a rock on top of my deck. I'm going to get a rock back to my hand, and then I'm going to mill with the Rap type. Rap type is going to get to a wall, so that's now a negate. And now I have a tuner on the board, so I'm going to link that away for something like, or synchro it away for Christian or Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. And then on my next turn, I'm just gonna use the effect of Christian Halka Fibrax. Halka Fibrax is gonna be able to go into Formula, and then Formula again is going to go into your Satellite Warrior. So you have pretty much like 3 negates plus now what, 1, 2, 3, 4 pops potentially with the Herald when you use this effect, or when your opponent crashes into it. It doesn't really matter. So you don't really want to focus on, trying to put out like multiple 7, 6, 8 negates, because people are not going to be playing through that. And if you, as you've seen in this replay, you've seen that I've had triple tactic talents in my hand. So if they really wanted to respond to any of my plays with a hand type like Imperm, Veiler, Ash Blossom, I have talents to either draw to, look at their hand, kind of get rid of any hand traps like Nibiru, and pretty much play on through that, because I have something like Seeker, or I maybe have like another extender in my hand, or I maybe have a Signs to bring back a monster and go into a Synchro. So this deck is very resilient to hand traps if you really think about it. But in those weaker hands where you don't have Adamancipators, you just have, maybe your level 4s to go into Godlike Granite, the talents really help, so you can kind of dig into that. Or if you're playing in games 2 and 3, you can side out the talents if you're playing against heavy combo, because they're probably not going to have hand traps, and you can side into stuff like Judgment, a pointer, so you can stop stuff like Dark Lord Namor, and maybe not Super Poly, but just the other going second cards like Evenly Matched. So that is really important to look at when you're looking at these replays and just looking at your deck in general. So let's look on to the last replay. This is just more footage of what you can do with the deck. As you've seen before, I'm going to early make Rab type because I don't have the Adamancipator tuners. That's why I said that Talents is really good in this deck, because if you don't draw into the Adamancipators, it could be really hard to play. But as you see, I'm going to hit Doki into the Analyzer, and then that's going to get my plays going, because I'm going to be able to, make more tuners and then get more extenders and, extend past uh, the Wrap type plays. So I'm going into Gallic Grant. I'm going to search Researcher, and now I have Seeker plus Analyzer in my hand, or Seeker plus Researcher. And then I do have the talents in hand. Always look at your hand and see what you have to play around hand traps, because that is mainly important. So this is just the basic end board. I'm going to end on pretty much 4 disruptions. I do have the Leonite with a fire in graveyard, so that's very important as well. So I'm going to be able to revive any of the rock monsters that I have in my graveyard. Maybe they don't break my board. Maybe like this disruption on board is enough, and I can just reborn a Raptide or a Researcher or Analyzer for next turn. So that is also really important when you're going against your opponent going second. So so that's pretty good. I have four negates, and then as well as the Halka Firebrax, which is going to disrupt my opponent. And I do, since I now have a level 6 non-tuner on the field, I can go into different synchros. So these are kind of like the big options. So you can go into Dragite because you're going to have the Quandax engraved. You could probably synchro into that with the wall or something like that to go into Dragite. You can go into the Draco Berserker Tenyi, which is a really good disruption. Not only going first, but going second, you can OTK with this card as well, which is pretty strong. That is why I love this card. I think this is super underrated as well. These two synchros are just very powerful. And then you have something like Omega to rip a card out of your opponent's hand, maybe to kind of luck sack a evenly match in their hand or droplets, or maybe they drop the Nibiru on you, or you're kind of scared of Nibiru, so you can make a level 8 synchro like Omega, and if they drop the Nibiru, you can just banish another card out of their hand. And at least you have an Omega for next turn. And then if you have something like Talents, you can Talents a card out of their hand. So they have two cards looped out of their hand essentially, or you can draw two cards with Talents as well. So that is why Talents is just very, very strong in this deck. So that is enough talking. Let's move on to the deck profile. So the deck profile is pretty standard. You're just going to be playing all three of the good tuners in the deck, and then you're going to be playing stuff like Doki. Doki is just very strong for getting to any of your analyzer, your researcher, your seeker, whatever, whatever. You can also get to Guardian, which is really good as well. As I said before, this is just a negate before you get hit with Nibiru. You also have Wall. I feel like a lot of people might not really like Wall because it just doesn't do anything. It's not like a negate for Nibiru. But when you look at this deck, it's very, very, very weak to something like evenly or not evenly droplets or lightning storm. So being able to kind of negate those spell cards, you can't really negate droplets, but you get the point that you're really weak to spell cards like Mystic Mind. So you want to really kind of have more ways to have spell negates on the board so you don't lose out to these blowout spell and trap cards, especially something like Talents. Talents is really strong against this deck because once you bait out a negate, you can pretty much talent still a monster and then attack over a monster. And now you have a negate and you get rid of a negate on top of that with just one talents, which is just really important. So having something like Wall, maybe even bumping up to 3 and cutting something like Fossil Dig is probably really important because getting that spell negate on board is just very important for these blowout spell and trap cards. You have the Supplier. Supplier is one of the best extenders, being able to not only get itself on the board, but also get a Quacky Mirror from your deck to your hand. So you have something to reveal with the Guardian or the Wall. And then you have something like the Madolche Petting Cessor, which is also very good for getting a level 4 body on the board before you combo off. And then you have the Red Resonator, which is a fire in the graveyard for your Leonite. And then for your Rock Band, it's really good for stacking your deck, getting a rock to your hand. So for next turn, if you add a analyzer or researcher, you can kind of go off and make more synchros on your next following turn. And then for signs is just really good. There's none really say. This is just like the best extender, the best way to kind of extend your plays and go into more synchro plays and go into more link plays. So that's really good. Same thing with Monster Reborn and Fossil Dig. It's just a better way to extend your plays. And then with Desires, this is really good for digging through your deck. I know a lot of people are playing Extravagance, but I feel like the Extravagance does really hurt the utility in your extra deck. Maybe you're playing something like, as I said before, the Draco Berserker of the Tenyi, which is just really good for OTKs when your opponent has multiple monsters on the board. Something like Phoenix is really good for Tikaboo or any Floodgate that is very problematic. I know a lot of people might not really think of, oh, my opponent might be playing more trap cards in this format because there's not like Smoke Grenade to loop out, the best trap card in your hand, or trap decks are just really bad in this format. But with VFD being in the format, there's going to be a lot more monkey players. So having something like Phoenix is just really good for utility. And then talents, as I said before, this card is really good going first. You have so much bait for hand traps that you can just loop a card. You can draw two, get rid of something going second. Like what is that card? Dragoon is just fairly strong to kind of take onto your field and then blow up their cards and then attack for game, stuff like that. So Talons is just really good going first and going second, and then the one upstart for consistency. And then the side deck is just basic stuff you want to play. So going first, if you know your opponent's gonna side in something like Forbidden Droplets, like Lightning Storm, and other going second cards, you kind of have to play stuff like Judgment and a Pointer to kind of get rid of that stuff. Red Reboot is also pretty good if you're playing against a trap deck and they might side evenly. Siding this in is not the bad idea to think about. So having all these going second cards as well is really good. Stuff like the Lightning Storm is good not only against back row, but against, punishing combo players that put their monsters in attack position. And then you have stuff like the Droplets, which is really good going first, going second. You can set this card and get rid of your own monsters you don't need, or maybe they're negated by Dark World and more. So you can kind of flip this over, negate their monsters, and that's really good as well. Pinkertop is just like the best going second card in the game, and there's a reason why it's at 1. And then for the extra deck, it's pretty standard. If you looked at the replays, you have the Dragite, which is good going first and going second for that spell negate, or milling to get rid of cards on their field. Leonite, good extender, good way to get more rocks on the field. Raptide, again, getting more rocks on the field. And if you do summon a second Raptide, you get the effect of banishing a card from your opponent's graveyard. Crystal Wing, really good negate. Quandax and the Formula Synchron, really good for synchroing into your Satellite Warrior or any of the level 8s. Then Draco Berserker of Tenyi, this card is just really good for not only getting rid of cards like Miss, banishing it from the graveyard, but you also have that going second option of kind of like OTKing, because this card is pretty much a Boral Sword if you think about it. And then you have Herald, another negate. Omega, as I said before, if you hard make this and they drop in a barrel, you can banish it and then hit another card out of their hand, and then you have Omega for next turn. Then the Satellite Warrior, really good for popping cards. I feel like this is the most underrated card when you're making the Adamancipator board. So like, even if like you're playing against a back row deck, like they set 3 pass, you go Satellite Warrior, pop those 3 back row, and you're just feeling really good. So uh, next card, Dragite or the Gallant Granite. Really good for getting back your Adamancipators from your deck to your hand. And then Crystal Wing and then Phoenix, as I said before, they're just really good in general. Halka being able to get into your tuners, which will get into your other synchros, or Phoenix being able to hit back row, which is very, very nice. I've rambled on long enough. I've said a whole bunch of information for you to gather for this next format, and just to how to play this deck moving forward. So I'm out of breath. I've spoke long enough. I've probably messed up like 3 or 4 times. I probably said like negate droplets or something wall like 50 times, and I'm just wrong. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later with the next deck profile. Peace.